When Mount Vesuvius erupted in the year 79 AD, it was one of the deadliest disasters in human history, and the place that got hit hardest by its cataclysmic forces was none other than the city of Naples. But although this is a well-known historical event, what has always been a mystery to me is how did the city of Naples recover from such an awful disaster, and why should we be worried about it happening again? Well, today, we're going to find out just that. This is the untold story of Naples, the city that survived the wrath of Vesuvius. For those of you who don't know, in 79 AD, Mount Vesuvius erupted for the first time in what would become recorded history, and the city of Naples was absolutely ravaged by the disaster. In fact, the city was actually completely buried by volcanic ash and pumice. It was only by sheer luck that some parts of the city were unearthed hundreds of years later. Now, when most people think about this eruption, they think about the Roman city of Pompeii, which was utterly destroyed and is now one of the world's most popular tourist attractions. But Pompeii was only one of several cities that got caught in Vesuvius's path of destruction, and the damage done to Naples was just as bad, if not even worse. In fact, modern archaeologists believe that the death toll at Naples was around 18,000 people, while the number in Pompeii was only around 2,000. So why do we remember Pompeii, but not Naples? Well, that might have something to do with the fact that Pompeii was much better preserved. You see, Pompeii was outside of the danger zone. Most people thought that the outer ring of the volcano was dormant, and so Pompeii was still standing after the initial eruption. But then a pyroclastic flow swept down the mountainside and engulfed the city, killing everyone in its path and preserving their bodies in the ash. On the other hand, Naples was right in the danger zone, and although the city was also covered in ash, the heat was so intense that it cremated most of the people who lived there. As a result, their bodies decomposed and turned to dust, leaving behind empty tombs and skeletal remains. However, it wasn't all bad news, because these skeletons are now some of the most valuable artifacts that we have from the time period. They've given scientists unprecedented access into the lives of people who lived 2,000 years ago. But now, let's get back to the story. After the eruption, the surrounding area became uninhabitable for quite a long time. Crops couldn't grow because the soil was poisoned by volcanic ash and poisonous gases. Fish in the sea also died because of the high levels of toxic metals in the water. And the hot springs that were once a source of healing and relaxation became scalding hot pools filled with toxic sludge. However, as time passed, people slowly started to return to their homes. At first, they weren't too optimistic about their chances of survival, but soon enough, crops started growing and fish started swimming in the waters once more, and so life went back to normal. But this new beginning came with a price. Throughout history, there had been many devastating earthquakes in Naples. But after the eruption, the city was hit with even stronger earthquakes that shook its foundations and caused massive landslides. The reason for this is because magma chambers beneath the surface of the earth were emptied during the eruption. This caused the ground to become unstable and led to even more volcanic activity. In fact, the city was struck by a magnitude 6 earthquake just 6 days after the initial eruption, and another magnitude 6 earthquake struck in the year 803. These earthquakes also led to even more volcanic eruptions of Mount Vesuvius over the next few decades, causing even more damage to the city of Naples. But although the people of Naples had to endure volcanic eruptions and earthquakes, their biggest enemy was actually their neighbors. You see, after the eruption, the nearby city of Stabia took advantage of Naples's weakness and started attacking them in an attempt to take over their territory. In response, Naples formed an alliance with Pompeii, and the two cities successfully repelled Stabia's attacks. But this victory came at a cost. The constant threat of invasion meant that the people of Naples could never fully settle down and rebuild their lives. To protect themselves from their enemies, they built walls around the city and armed themselves with weapons. It was only in the year 966 that Pope Leo IX gave them permission to disarm, and this marked the end of the Middle Ages for Naples. However, the peace didn't last for too long. In the year 1139, Naples found itself under the control of King Roger II of Sicily. But the people of Naples hated being ruled by foreigners, and so they rebelled against King Roger II and invited King William I of France to conquer their city. This went on for another 2 centuries until the French and the Holy Roman Empire decided to divide Naples between them. Finally, in 1494, the Spanish king Ferdinand II invaded Naples and took control of the city. Now, at this point, you might think that the people of Naples would just give up and stop trying to improve their lives. But that's just not true. Throughout history, Naples had been through so much pain and suffering that its people were determined to succeed no matter the obstacles. In fact, when the Spanish began draining the marshes in the 16th century to prevent outbreaks of malaria, the people of Naples were so grateful that they named the newly created land after the Spanish king, calling it Spain's land. However, things went downhill once again when the Spanish king was overthrown and Naples came under the control of the House of Bourbon. The new rulers were far less interested in improving the lives of their subjects, and this led to a decline in Naples's population and economy. Then in 1799, the French invaded Naples once again, and this time, they brought with them new ideas of liberty and democracy. Unfortunately, these ideas didn't last for long, and in 1806, the French were forced to leave Naples. However, these foreign invasions were nothing compared to what was to come. In 1861, the Kingdom of Naples ceased to exist when it was conquered by the Kingdom of Sardinia and incorporated into the newly unified Kingdom of Italy. Although most people expected the people of Naples to resist this foreign rule, they didn't. Instead, they welcomed their new Italian rulers with open arms. But this didn't mean that the people of Naples had forgotten about their painful past. In fact, every year on August, they celebrate the anniversary of their liberation from the Spanish with a massive festival. During the festival, people reenact the overthrow of the Spanish king and celebrate their victory with music, food, and fireworks. And that brings us to the present day. Today, Naples is one of the most beautiful cities in the world. Its historic buildings and monuments are a testament to its rich history and its people's determination to survive no matter how bad things get. However, the people of Naples haven't allowed their tragic past to define their future. Instead, they've used it as motivation to create a better life for themselves and their children. After all, they've survived the wrath of Vesuvius. Surely they can survive anything. But let's not forget that Mount Vesuvius is still an active volcano, and there is always a risk of another eruption. In fact, experts believe that there is a 1 in 100 chance of an eruption happening every year. That means that the people of Naples live with the constant threat of another deadly eruption hanging over their heads. And even though they've survived the worst that Vesuvius has to offer, there's no guarantee that they'll be able to do it again. Now, obviously, this doesn't mean that we should be worried about Vesuvius erupting tomorrow. It's just that it's important to remember that the people of Naples live with this threat every day. So if you ever visit Naples, keep in mind that the people there are some of the strongest and most resilient people on planet Earth. They've survived the wrath of Vesuvius, and they're not about to let it defeat them now. What do you guys think? Let me know in the comments below. And as always, thanks so much for watching, and see you next time.